Welcome to my channel, or welcome back if you're a returning viewer. I'm Maisie, and this is Maisie with a Z, and today we're going to do a mid-year reading wrap-up. Also, hi, it's been a while. I haven't uploaded a video in a long time, well over a year. I think my last video was like my February TBR, or February wrap-up for 2025. Which isn't great. I have filmed some videos in that time, they just never got edited and uploaded, so those might show up at some point. I have a Lord of the Rings reading vlog from spring break, which was a time, and I would like to get that uploaded because it took a lot out of me. I read Lord of the Rings in like 5 days or something because I had to read it before a class that I then ended up dropping, so that was a whole thing. So yes, it's been a super busy year for me. I graduated college last month. I wrote 2 senior theses, one for each of my majors, creative writing and English. I had grad school applications and I got into grad school, and now I'm in the middle of doing prep work for going to grad school for English in the UK next year. It's been a time. I've been super busy, but I'm really excited to hopefully be getting back into BookTube a bit. I love making these book videos and talking about books and sharing my thoughts, and like BookTube's always felt a bit friendlier to me than Bookstagram, or definitely than BookTok. BookTok scares me. I mean, TikTok in general scares me, but like BookTok also scares me. Anyway, I think a mid-year reading wrap-up was my first or second video on this channel ever 3 years ago, so it feels like a good place to start to kind of get back into making videos on a more regular schedule. So yes, without further ado, let's go ahead and get into the first question. First question is best book I've read so far in 2026. I mean, I can never choose just one favorite book, so I chose 5. They're all somewhat different genres. First up is Good Luck Babe by Erin Baldwin. Her first book, Wish You Weren't Here, was one of my favorite books of 2024, I think, probably. I'm pretty sure it was 2024. I absolutely loved that book. It was like a summer camp YA sapphic romance, enemies to lovers, and it was just so fun. And so super excited for her sophomore book, and I was really excited when I got the e-arc for it. It was great. It surpassed the first book in my mind. This follows our 2 best friends, Yumi and Noelle, who grew up together, were best friends, inseparable, until a little less than a year ago. They had this huge falling out. I think they kissed and it got awkward and they just like never talked again. They had, before their like friendship breakup, they had submitted an application to the in-universe equivalent of like The Amazing Race. They end up getting selected for the next season on very short notice. Noelle's father has been very sick, so she needs the money for his medical bills. So she convinces Yumi to pretend they're still friends in order to be able to go on the show. And they find out it's a couples-only show, so they not only have to pretend to still like each other, but they have to pretend to be dating. It's this forced proximity, like best friends to strangers to lovers, and it's so cute. I don't know, it just feels like quintessentially sapphic, and I loved all the characters and seeing all the different locations and challenges they had to go to. And it was so fun. It just like was like a perfect summer read for me, in the sense that like, could it have had a tiny bit more character development? Yes, but also it's limited by being like the length of being a YA novel and also having to fit in the very plot-heavy TV plotline. So I'm okay with like losing a little character development for that. It was just super cute and it was a great summer read, and I would really recommend it for anyone who enjoys like YA romance or is looking for a summery sapphic book. It was just really good. Next up, very different book, is Lord of the Rings by J.R.R. Tolkien. As I mentioned, I read this over spring break for a class. I wish I had not had to read it very quickly over spring break for a class and that I could have like lingered in it a bit more, but I really enjoyed it. I did not enjoy The Hobbit, so I was kind of nervous going into this. And do I personally think it is the best fantasy book of all time? No. I think it is probably the best fantasy world building of all time, but that's a different thing. I don't think the plotting and writing and pacing, especially in the second volume, The Two Towers, I think if it were published in the modern day, it probably would have had more plot editing and been a little better paced, but I still think it was spectacular. I really enjoyed it. Fellowship of the Ring, absolutely adored. Ate it up. Easy 5 stars. Two Towers, yeah. And then Return of the King was also a return to being very, very good. It's just the second volume was like... But Lord of the Rings overall, really good. Would really recommend to anyone who likes fantasy, even if you've like been hesitating over it. Absolutely amazing. And yeah, I just love the world. The world building was so nice, and I loved reading about all the lore. I don't know if I'm gonna read the Silmarillion though. I mean, I like the world building. I don't know if I like the world building that much. Next up is Howl's Moving Castle, which like, if I'd had to choose one book to be my favorite book of 2025, it would have been Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. I adored this book. It was so lovely and whimsical, and I really, really loved it. I also watched the Studio Ghibli adaptation after reading it, and that was also amazing. I think I preferred the book a little more, but you know, the film was beautiful as well. And I just... it was just such a delight to read it. I think I read it all in one day. It's just lovely and it's fun, but it's not just like fluff. It's engaging with fantasy tropes and fairy tale structures, and it's good fantasy, but it's also just absolutely delightful. And if I had to choose any book this year to be like my one favorite book, it would be this. Next up, we have The Jasmine Throne by Tasha Suri. I had been meaning to read this for forever. This is a book where I was a little cursed with The Jasmine Throne for a long time, where I'd been wanting to read it, but I could never find a copy in a bookstore that was not so bent up I could not justify spending full price on it. But I really wanted to own it because I basically always want to actually own my fantasy books. I didn't find it until probably 2 or 3 years of searching. Where it's not just I couldn't find it in a bookstore, it's that every time I found it in a bookstore, it was already damaged, which was just, oh my god. I finally bought it, and then after searching for it for ages, I still didn't read it for over a year. But June this year, I decided I was finally going to read it. It was Pride Month. I was like, I cannot put off this iconic sapphic fantasy any longer. It deserves to be read during Pride. And it was good. It was so good. I shouldn't have put it off. Basically, it's set in this South Asian inspired fantasy world. It's in this country that's colonized by a larger kingdom, and it's had this blight kind of tearing through this like magical forest that's in it. The blight basically causes people to like rot from the inside. They turn kind of plant-like and rotted. We're following Priya, who's a former temple child turned maidservant. I don't really want to talk about what a temple child is for fear of spoiling the book. And she ends up being charged with helping take care of Malini, who is the emperor's sister, who has been imprisoned. They basically end up working together to break Malini out so that she can go help lead her other brother to overthrow the emperor, who's currently, being evil. I don't know, it was so good. I loved Malini and Priya, but I also just loved the overall plot line and all our side characters. The world was so interesting. It mostly takes place in like this one city, and honestly most of it takes place in like this one temple that Malini's imprisoned in, and it still feels like this like wide sweeping fantasy. And like from what I can tell from this book, the next 2 books in the series will expand to cover much more ground geographically. I really enjoyed it. I would highly recommend. It's just a really well done fantasy book, and it's also sapphic and feminist, and I really liked it. It was an easy 5 stars. I thoroughly enjoyed it. I thought it was exceptionally well done, and hopefully it will take me less time to find and read the second book. Last up is What You Were Looking For Is in the Library, which was so cute. It's by Michiko Aoyama, and I've read so much like Japanese and Korean like healing fiction, and this was leagues beyond all the other ones I've read, where I enjoyed plenty of them. I gave many of them like 4.5 stars, but this was just the absolute blueprint, not just because it was focused on a library and so it was very book heavy. It was just so cozy. I really cared about like each character we were following and their development and how like what they encounter in this one community library changes them. I love so many of the small details, like the reference librarian who gives each person a little needle felted toy that'll help them along the way without them really knowing what its purpose is. Yeah, it was wonderful. If you're looking for something very complex or plot heavy, it's probably not going to be the one for you. Otherwise, if you're just looking for something cozy that will like heal a little bit of you, that will give you just space to breathe, then I would really recommend this. Like, if you're going to try just one of the like healing fiction, of like the Days in the Murasaki bookstore, Convenience Store by the Sea, Kamigawa Food Detectives, etc., then I would really recommend trying this one. I thought it was exceptional. Okay, that was a lot of rambling. I will try to ramble less for the rest of this. Although first up, we've got best sequel you've read so far in 2023. I have two options. One is Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales, which is the third book in the Emily Wilde series. It was supposed to be the finale in the trilogy, and now there's a fourth book announced, which I'm not sure how I feel about. I don't think we needed a fourth book. I already feel like Emily's character development was a little stagnated over these three books. I'm not sure we needed a fourth one. I love Emily Wilde. I will read the fourth book. I will probably enjoy it. Do I think it's the best choice for the series to continue? Probably not. But Emily Wilde's Compendium of Lost Tales sees us following the events of the second book as she and Wendell actually end up in the fairy realm, which I'm not going to go into too much detail over. It just feels very different from the first two books in a good way, where the first two books feel a lot more like Emily is studying the fairies from outside their world, and here we see her actually get to go into their world and see things that no like fairy naturalist in this world has ever seen before. I thought that was so fun. It really felt like we were discovering things at every turn. I thought the plot in this one was really interesting, and yeah, it was good. It was a really good trilogy conclusion. Again, since I read it, a fourth book has been announced, which I'm not pleased about, but if we're taking this as a trilogy conclusion, very good. Even if we're not, it was very good. I don't think the ending of this book warranted a fourth book, but we'll see. My other favorite sequel I've read is The Geographer's Map to Romance by India Holton. India Holton is always my fave. She can write anything. I will read it and I will give it 5 stars. Is that true? Actually, I might not have given this 5 stars. This might have been 4.5. I think actually technically I only gave this 4 stars. It was still super enjoyable and I smiled the entire time through reading it. It's just, plot-wise, I didn't really care about like the wider magical plot as much compared to the Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love, which I adored. I thought it was so fun seeing these two characters thrown together through this magical bird chasing competition. And here, the magic is geography/geology based. Again, they're called geographers, but the magic seems very geological, so I don't really know what's going on there. And the stakes are simultaneously too high for this plot and not fully explained enough. And then we have these two characters who are in a marriage of convenience, but like they haven't really spoken to each other since they got married and had this misunderstanding where like they both obviously had feelings for each other and then were convinced that the other person doesn't like them. I really enjoyed these characters, but the misunderstanding was such just a misunderstanding that shouldn't have happened that I found it hard to get like fully invested in this plot. So it was super fun. Highly recommend. If you love India Holton, then you should still read this. It's excellent. But I would definitely say this is the weakest of her books that I've read so far, which are her 3 Dangerous Damsels books, which were all 5 stars, I think, or 4.5, and The Ornithologist's Field Guide to Love, which is the one this is a sequel to, which is 5 stars. And that leads us nicely into new release you haven't read yet, but want to, where I'm hoping to do a longer video on this soon. So I'm just going to run through these really quickly. We have The Unicorn Hunters by Catherine Arden, who is the author of the Winter Night trilogy. And this is set in medieval France, inspired in some way by medieval tapestries. I think it's supposed to be like historical fiction with like touches of fantasy, and I'm really excited. I love Catherine Arden. Winter Night trilogy was phenomenal, so I'm sure this is going to be at least good. We have 6 of Crows, A Darker Shore, which I have the Barnes & Noble edition, which is like cloth covered. It seems super fun. From what I can tell, it's more of like a short story than a novella, but it has puzzles and things to solve in it, and I think that's going to be super interesting. I feel like everyone really wanted 6 of Crows 3 from this. I don't think this is going to be 6 of Crows 3, but I'm interested to see what this will be like, and I'm hoping the puzzles are good. I would really like them to be interesting, but we'll find out. Next up is The Antiquarian's is Object of Desire, I think, which is the third book in the India Holton Loves Academic series, which includes The Geographer's Guide to Romance. Super excited. Just need to pick this up and I will read it probably immediately after I buy it. Again, India Holton can do essentially no wrong in my eyes, other than my couple of semi-minor issues with Geographer's Map to Romance. Really excited for this, and excited to hopefully be back within a more logical magic system. I don't know. We'll see. Next up is The Tapestry of Fate by Shannon Chakraborty, which is the sequel to The Adventures of Amina al-Sirafi, which was one of my favorite books of 2024, I think. No, it's one of my favorite books of 2023. I went to a Shannon Chakraborty event for this at school in Chicago when this first came out. I haven't had a chance to read it yet. Super excited. It's going to be great. I love the first book, and I'm really excited. And finally, we have Agnes Aubert's Magical Cat Shelter by Heather Fawcett, the author of the Emily Wilde series. And I'm really excited to see what she does outside of the Emily Wilde world. And it's a magical cat shelter, so like what else could I want? It sounds so cute, and I'm really excited for it. The cover's gorgeous. I also own all 5 of these books, to be clear. I just don't feel like getting them out, so I need to read that. I don't know that much about it, but it has cats, and it's by Heather Fawcett, who I love. So I'm expecting to adore it. And then next up is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Like, there's a lot I could name. Like, we have a new Elizabeth Lim book, we have a new Niveau book, we have Mirror of Infinite Endings, which is a Once Upon a Broken Heart novella, I think. We have the new Fourth Wing book, we have a new ACOTAR book, we have a new King T. Kingfisher book, we also have a new R.F. Kuang book coming out, Taipei Story, which I'm super hyped for, etc. I'm going to be talking more about all of these and more when I do this video, but the one book I really want to highlight for this is The Last King of Faerie by Cassandra Clare. I cannot wait. This is going to be the first book in the last Shadowhunters trilogy. I'm so excited. It's been so long since we got a Shadowhunters book. I mean, it's not actually that long. Chain of Thorns was 2023. It has been a while. But I'm so excited for this. It's going to be so good, even though if I'm really sad to think about Shadowhunters ending. I am hoping to do a Mortal Instruments reread and maybe a Dark Artifices reread before this book comes out. Last King of Faerie. Going to be amazing. Hopefully I have a chance to do a reread. If I do, I will vlog it. I haven't reread the Mortal Instruments in full, I think, since I read them for the first time, because I did not like the 4 through 6 book that much. The first through third book have their own problems. I don't even like the Mortal Instruments that much compared to the Last Hours and the Dark Artifices, which I adore. I would love all of those characters so much. I love the plot so much. Mortal Instruments in comparison, I love the characters. I don't love the fake out incest plotline, which I mean, like, I'll talk about this if I do the vlog. I understand intellectually why that was a plotline, because we have Valentine who raised Jace as his own and abusive, and we can understand that he will do whatever hurts Jace the most, and of course what hurts Jace the most would be tell him like he is wrong for loving this girl who he adores. However, I think we could have cleared up that plotline a little quicker, Cassandra Clare. But anyway, we'll review that when and if I do that vlog. I would really like to do that vlog though. Maybe I'll get myself a week off from school prep at some point and just read the Mortal Instruments in a week. That would be so fun. We'll see how that goes. But yes, so excited for this book. I've been so excited for it since Chain of Thorns came out. Nothing can compete with that for me for book I'm most excited for. I mean, I'm pretty excited for ACOTAR 6, which I mean, like, I think ACOTAR 6 is like volume 1 of ACOTAR 7, which is volumes 2 and 3 of like all the same story. My excitement for that will be very dependent on what it is about. If it's about Elaine, I will be excited-ish for it. I would really like part of it to be about Moore and Emery because I love them. I love my lesbians. Like, I love Moore and I want them to be together. I don't think it's going to be about them. But if they could get like a side plot, I would be so happy. It's going to be about Elaine. I mean, we all know it's going to be about Elaine. It could be about Gwen. What I would most like, which I don't think she's going to do because ACOTAR is so much a romance, where we have Farah's books and then we have Nesta's book. What I would like is more Gwen and Elaine's story all happening at the same time, kind of, and us getting more of a Throne of Glass treatment. I don't think we're going to. I don't think that's going to happen. I think this is just going to be an Elaine book, and we'll be lucky if we get scraps of more, but we'll see. I mean, I do like Elaine as a character. I don't care about Lucien, and frankly, I don't care about Asriel. I care about Morn, I care about Emery, and I care about Elaine having healing. I don't care about any of these men. We'll see. I said I wasn't going to talk very much for this question, but then I did, and I'm sorry for that. Next up is biggest disappointment, and I have a list. I'm not going to talk super long about any of them. I'll just give like a brief reason why. First book is Lore of the Wild by Annalise Brana, and I wanted to like this so badly. It is so pretty. It is such a pretty cover. It's like the prettiest cover. It's about a magical library, and I was like, this cannot be anything less than 4 stars because it's so pretty and it's about magical books. And then I read it and the world building made no sense and the plot was bad, and frankly our main character Lore didn't have any character development. Like the love triangle was bad. I don't even know. I'm like, I wanted to like it so badly. It's basically a book where like the vibes are good, the details are not so good, which is disappointing, but it does seem from the reviews like a lot of people agreed with me on that. I'm like, maybe the second book could be better, but I don't think I'm going to read the second book because the first book was such a disappointment. And then we have An Impossible Imposter by Diana Rayborn. This is book something in the Veronica Speedwell series. It was okay. It was fine. It was just not particularly great compared to the rest of the series. Frankly, I think the series peaked for me in book 4. Book 4 was extraordinary, and after that everything's going to be a little bit of a disappointment, but this was especially just like unnecessary drama, and the mystery wasn't that interesting, and it was just like, I don't know. I wanted to like it. And then we have Great Big Beautiful Life by Emily Henry. It was okay. It was not great. It really felt to me like Emily Henry wanted to write a more literary fiction, Seven Husbands of Evelyn Hugo's type story, and felt like she had to stick it in a rom-com, and as a result both halves suffered because the literary fiction-y uncovering the story of this like very famous former socialite's past is not given enough development or detail or anything to be that compelling, and then because we spend half the book on that, then the romance is also underdeveloped, and they're saying they love each other within like a few weeks of meeting, and it's just like, I don't believe you, I don't buy into it. So this is a case of Emily Henry, you should have just written a literary fiction adjacent book. You should not have tried to cram this into a rom-com, but you didn't do that. So we're left with this book, which is, as a result, mediocre on all fronts. And then we have another book that really hurt me to be disappointed by, which is The Secret World of Briar Rose by Cindy Pham. The concept was good. The world building isn't there, and the plot's super repetitive. But more than that, it's just painful to read because it's so overwritten, and none of the metaphors or anything makes sense at all. On the surface level, the language sounds nice, but if you actually pay attention to what it is saying, none of the figurative language makes sense, none of the descriptions make sense, none of them are doing anything for the story. That made it so like each page was kind of a pain to get through, and then in addition to that, when the story itself is kind of weak, then it becomes very hard to enjoy the book. This was so sad. I was so excited for my Sapphic Sleeping Beauty retelling, and it was only okay. I mean, it wasn't even okay, it was bad. I didn't like it. I really wanted to like it. I respect Cindy a lot. As a book creator, I think this book had a lot of potential. I think it needed a much harsher editorial eye on the language. So that was a huge disappointment. I was so excited for this. I was so excited to get an e-arc for it, and it was just Anyway, last up is Well Ascension by Brandon Sanderson. It's not surprising this is on the list because it took me like a year to get through. However, it wasn't very good. I loved Mistborn. I adored Mistborn. I thought Mistborn was so good. This book was not good. I did not care about the characters. I did not care about Vin and Ellen's stupid love triangle, which didn't really make sense. I didn't care about Sazed and Tindwell's romance. I'm frankly offended that so many books by women with comparatively less important romance plotlines get categorized as like romantasy and thus not real fantasy. And meanwhile, this book, which has like the most YA romance drama ever, is like the main thing that's happening at most points because the plot's not really progressing, is considered proper high fantasy. And it was so frustrating. I just didn't care. Vin was acting completely out of character. The last like 100 pages were good. They were solidly written. It's just everything leading up to it was not. I did not like it. Those are all my disappointments. Next up is biggest surprise, and for me that's Outdrawn by Diana Gray. This was so cute, guys. I just picked it up because it was on Kindle Unlimited. It was like Pride Month, and I was like, I haven't read enough sapphic books this month. So I was looking for any romance I could like get pretty quickly. This was available on Kindle Unlimited, and oh my gosh, it was so cute, guys. It follows these two rival comic artists who end up working on like the relaunch of this character at this smaller comic company, and oh my gosh, the rivals to lovers was so cute. I loved their dynamics and interactions. I also just loved like the comic setting, and I devoured this so quickly. It was so cute. Could the characters have had like a tiny bit more depth? Sure. Could the competition plotline happening outside of the company made a little more sense and or been a little more realistic and or been cut because it added essentially nothing to the plot? Yeah. However, this was so cute and fun and absolutely addictive. I would highly recommend it. Next up, we have favorite new author, either debut or new to you. And for this I have two, one who's a debut and one who is not a debut but new to me. The first is Adeline Kahn of Just Between Us, which is a graphic novel about rival figure skaters where one of them is like ranked number 1 in the world, the other's ranked like number 3 maybe, and she ends up transferring to be under the same coach as the one ranked number 1. So they're kind of like put into forced proximity, and this was so cute. The art was gorgeous. I really love the storyline and the romance. Romance doesn't always work for me super well in graphic novels because, you know, you lose a lot of time for development, and this did cheat that some by having a lot of time jumps where you're just kind of expected to believe that some development happened. But overall, I think it was really well done. I loved both characters and how they kind of grew from knowing each other. It was wonderful. I would highly recommend. I'm really excited for whatever else this author does. My other new favorite author is Tasha Suri, who is the author of The Jasmine Throne. Again, this was not her first book, and this also came out ages ago, but it was new to me this year. So I really loved her. I'm really excited to read the rest of the series, and depending how that goes, her other work as well. And yeah, newest fictional crush. I never really know what to say for this. I don't really get crushes on fictional characters. So, skipping that. Next is newest favorite character. And for that I'd have to say either Sophie of Howl's Moving Castle or Éowyn of Lord of the Rings. Love both of them. They're very different characters, but I love them. I'm not going to go into too much more detail because I don't have reasons. It's just a vibe. Next up is Book That Made You Cry. I have two. First is The Member of the Wedding by Carson McCullers. I read this for a class on girlhood this winter. It's about this girl whose like brother's getting married and she wants to be like a member of the wedding party. But it's very much about her feeling lost and not really part of things as she's kind of like entering teenagerhood. There are so many passages that just feel like this really poignant commentary on how it feels to be coming of age, and especially how it feels to be coming of age in a rapidly shifting world. Like, it feels intensely relatable if you've ever been a lonely preteen girl. And then other one related is The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim. This follows 4 women who together rent this castle in Italy for the month. All of them are kind of struggling to come to terms with something about themselves, but the crux of it is so much about like reaching for happiness and accepting you deserve happiness, and also like learning to recognize others and understand them. Neither of these books made me like flat out cry, but there are just passages in them that are so like poignant and intensely relatable in a kind of sad way that like they definitely made me tear up a little. Next up is a reverse book that made you happy. I have 4. 2 by T. Kingfisher. One is Sword Heart, which was so fun. It was so cute and so fun. It's fantasy romance about a woman who falls in love with this like man who's trapped inside of a sword. They have to go on this adventure to try and preserve her inheritance. She inherits a lot of property from the man she's been taking care of, and his relatives try to imprison her, and she and like the sword guy escape, and they go and like get a lawyer and such. And it's so fun. It was just, I was laughing and smiling the entire time. It's so fun. Character development, not so much. There's some, but really this is just like fun and it's funny. I will say, if the book is not like your sense of humor, you're probably not going to enjoy it at all. However, it is very much my sense of humor, and I adored it, and I laughed throughout. And I love T. Kingfisher. Next up is also 9 Goblins by her. It's following this group of goblins who are fighting in wars against humans, I think. They end up kind of like magically transported in the middle of a battle, and they're trying to find their way home. It's also just very fun and lighthearted, and Both these books have their moments of darkness, but it's never for long. It's never overwhelming. I just really love them. Absolute joys to read. Also on this list are Good Luck Babe by Erin Baldwin, which I mentioned earlier. So fun. And What You're Looking For is in the Library is also on this list. Next up is Most Beautiful Book You've Bought So Far This Year or Been Given. For that, I have to take a little field trip. I'll be back in a sec. These my mom bought for me for my birthday. They were a surprise, but they're 3 Folio Society books, where if you don't know, Folio Society makes these really beautiful, super well-made collector's editions of books. First, I have Pride and Prejudice. This little case has, "It is a truth universally acknowledged that a single man in possession of good fortune must be in want of a wife." We have this cover, and the illustrations are beautiful, and it's just stunning. I collect editions of Pride and Prejudice. I have well over a dozen. It's so beautiful. Then we have an edition I've been wanting for ages, but like I never like asked anyone for it because it's expensive, but it's the Folio Society of Little Women. I think it's so beautiful. I think the spine is gorgeous, and we have end papers. And the illustrations are stunning. They're just gorgeous. And I love this book so much. This has been like top of like my book wish list for forever, and I'm just so grateful and happy I finally own it. Last up was A Never Ending Story. So we have illustrated slipcase. It's the cover, and it has patterned edges. There's the end papers. It's so pretty. I've never actually read this, but I'm really excited to. I won't read this edition, but I'll look at this edition after I read it to see all the illustrations and everything. It's so beautiful, and I love children's literature and children's fantasy literature. So I'm really excited to own this. Those are most beautiful books I've obtained this year by far. I adore all of them. I think they're all stunning. I can't believe I actually own them. Next up, what books do you need to read by the end of the year? First, I have a long list of Victorian novels I would like to read. I'm getting my master's degree in Victorian literature next year, and because my English program in undergrad wasn't like super strong in Victorian literature, I feel like I'm behind on Victorian novels I should have read. So I want to catch up. I want to read definitely Middlemarch and Great Expectations, at least one Thomas Hardy book. I'm currently reading Dracula. I'm hopefully almost done with that. And also some like early 20th century. I have some Virginia Woolf books. So yes, I would really like to read as many of those as possible. I'm treating that kind of like part of my homework assignment for the summer. I also have tons of like actual assigned readings I have to read. As I said earlier, I'd really like to reread The Mortal Instruments and maybe The Dark Artifices before The Last King of Faerie comes out in November. We'll see how that goes. And as I said earlier, I might reread ACOTAR in the fall if I decide I want to do that before books 6 and 7 come out. Everything on my new release list for things that have come out. Again, very high on the list. So like those are all things that like if I get to the end of the year and I haven't read them, I'll be disappointed. Would be nice. I have Blood Over Brighthaven, The Raven Scholar, The Bone Season, Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell, and The Once and Future King. I would like to read all of those. They've all been on my TBR for a really long time. We'll see if I get to them. And then final question on this tag. Favorite book community member? I have to say Throne of Pages. Her videos are always so fun, and I love her energy, and her videos are always like what I go to when I've been a little outside of a reading mood or just want like some good book recommendations. I think I have to go with her. That brings us to the end of this tag. Hopefully I get this uploaded soon. We'll see. I also have some videos hopefully in the pipeline, which include catching up on my reading challenge book I did a week or two ago, as well as I said, I'd have a recent and upcoming releases I really want to read video I really want to make. Other than that, we'll kind of see how I'm feeling, what I want to make. That's about the end of the video. If you enjoyed this, please like, comment, and subscribe if you want to see more videos from me. I really appreciate it. You can find me intermittently on Instagram and my blog at the links in the description. And yeah, thanks so much for sticking to the end. I really appreciate it, and I'll talk to you later.